So hopefully that will work. So one of the first questions that came up was, can we have food to share if it is prepackaged or individually served/wrapped?
Yes, I believe so, unless Andrea's going to argue with me.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I was out.
It's the question about can we have food if it is individually wrapped?
I think if it's prepackaged stuff, that's fine if there's no allergies. I guess I'd caution if it's somebody putting stuff together, because if they have any symptoms, if they're asymptomatic and carrying it around, there's the possibility of transferring it.
Yeah.
So more like something like a BJ's box of popcorn that comes prepackaged in a box, kind of thing. That's safer. Not packaged by a parent necessarily.
Right. Yeah. Just
that
like what they're saying about Halloween. Hi everybody. There's a whole bunch of people popping in as we start.
I see that. Hi everyone.
I'm so glad everybody came, and welcome to our first ever town hall. Hopefully it'll go well and we can do this periodically as people have questions. I'm happy to do this. We started with question 1. Nicole read it, and Andrea and I were responding about food in the classrooms. And I certainly think it's okay if it's prepackaged and not packaged by a parent or by you. And the big concern has been the delivery of that. So like with the recommending for Halloween is that you don't hand it to the kid or touch it yourself. So you maybe have it set up, or you're putting it on student desk before they even get there, or somehow, delivering it to the kid in a safe way. I think it probably is fine.
And I was just looking to see if there was any more food questions.
Well, I think there was one about eating in the caf.
Yeah. So eating in the cafeteria.
Nope.
The state recommends that it stays closed.
Yeah. I think closed for eating, and Andrea, you can disagree with me, but I think the cafeteria could be used similar to a classroom. I mean, if someone wanted to get a change of atmosphere or use a bigger space for something you were doing with your pod or your class, that's totally fine. But
yes, as long as it's clean and disinfected after.
Yeah, as far as for eating, no. And again, that's because to eat, you have to take your mask off. So,
So for those of you who just came in, I'm monitoring the chat box too. So if you want to type in a question, or we'll stop after a couple of questions and give you guys a chance to ask questions that you may have. You can do it either way. So you can ask or wait and listen or type it in the box.
Yeah, or tell me I'm all wrong or all wet or don't know anything. It might be safer in the chat box.
So we do have one in the chat, and it's, how can we have a duty-free lunch block if we cannot have cafeteria lunches? So are we talking about the current schedule? Currently, our schedule is that we have a duty-free lunch, and it's after the students leave. So, but if we go full day, then that's a different story. So do you guys have any comments about that?
I mean, my comments were, there is a push to go full day, but there is no set, timeline for doing that. There is no, hidden agenda. We want to do that for the kids and their families, but we certainly want to keep you safe and keep the social distancing up and all the things that we've been doing that have been keeping everyone safe. We want to keep that in place. So I know that the elementary principals set up or are trying to set up an ad hoc committee with representatives from each school to, study how to do this. Like, what makes sense? How can you have the duty-free lunch? how can we keep kids socially distanced and staff socially distanced if we have everyone here all day? But, you know, there's problems both ways, like somebody asked about related arts. And, you know, we need to go back to a full day to fit in all the required related arts. So it kind of goes both ways, and it is a dilemma, and I don't have an answer, but I'm hoping that this ad hoc committee can kind of explore that and try to figure out what can we do? Are there any compromises to be made? How could we get all the kids back? Make sure you have your prep period. Make sure you have your duty-free lunch. Make sure everybody's still safe and socially distanced.
So I like that you said that. Someone had typed in, when does the district plan to move programming to its regularly scheduled hours, and how much advance notice will families get and staff to prepare for the change? So it's not really, there's not a deadline or a date right now.
Nope.
And
No,
we're kind of
certainly.
just going into flu season, and
It's certainly
Cool.
something that we know we'd like to do, but we don't have a set date or a set plan. And you know, maybe it's possible, maybe it isn't possible. I don't know. And so
Kathy, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Kathy, but do you want to talk about what the meeting is on Monday morning? Isn't there a committee, Kathy? You might not be able to hear me.
Yeah, the elementary principals are sort of leading that charge. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, if you haven't heard from them yet, they'll be eliciting some
People.
people. Yeah, will be working on that committee. So I don't know if.
Do you want me to talk about that for a second?
Sure.
There you are.
I didn't know you were here.
I turned it off so I could stuff my face with some food.
Oh,
So we're going to get together on Monday. It's going to be the first of a regular weekly meeting for this ad hoc committee. If you haven't done so and you're interested, please let your administrator know that you're interested. The idea is, I think I've got some lettuce in my teeth, so if it looks like I've got a tooth knocked out, it's just lettuce. The idea is for Monday is we're going to identify opportunities for reopening and also barriers for reopening. We're going to start to organize those into different buckets and then start to consider a timeline for how we want to approach the reopening process. So, I mean, again, you know, and I tried to be very clear with the Dothan-Brook staff that, you know, we're not coming in with a timeline that at the end of the first trimester, we're all going to be back. We are acutely aware that we will get more students back. And so there are some challenges that we need to address as that happens. But other than that, there's not a set timeline. So, you know, we will be discussing that at that meeting. So yeah, did that answer, whoever asked that question, did that answer that for you?
I think it did. It was kind of a broad question about, and I actually, Rick, I think you addressed this question about how can we make sure all the stakeholders have input, students, staff, parents, and all that.
Yeah, one thing that we definitely want to talk about in that group is how we start to include parent or at least family voice in that conversation. We will let everybody know as far as staff goes who are representing each school so that, you know, other than the principal, which you should feel comfortable going to, but, you know which staff members you could raise concerns with. You know, I am sure I haven't figured out how we will do this, but I am sure that we will publish minutes so that people know what we're talking about. So it's not, you know, the secret society who's going to make these great decisions that are going to destroy your lives. So we'll keep everybody abreast of what's going on.
That's good. So there were some other questions, and I think it revolves around if more students come back. Which I think is a distinct possibility. There's been some challenges with the remote learning for some families. How will we fit more students in the room while maintaining social distance? And a comment was made, which I love. Kids are starting to push the boundaries of COVID rules, and they're just more comfortable now, I think, is what's happening. And that basically, how will we handle the jam-packedness of bigger classes? So do you think that will come out of that meeting too?
I really hope that the committee will deal with that, because it's sort of one of those, it's a good problem to have. I mean, we want the kids back, but we want everybody to be safe. And, we want to maintain everything that we've done well, which is the distancing and the mask wearing. And I mean, in a way, I'm kind of glad that the kids want to come back and be in person, and the families recognize that remote learning really isn't as good as live in school and present learning. So that's a good thing, but somehow we've got to figure out how to keep everybody safe. So we're not going to force kids into rooms and say, yeah, they're under 3 feet, but they wanted to come back, so tough, deal with it. We've got to figure that out. We have to work together to say, how can we do this? Can we think outside the box a little? And it's a little bit against what we would usually do, but maybe, if a certain class is too full, or there's 15 or 16 kids and you really can't squeeze out any more space so they can be socially distanced, can they go to a different classroom? Can a 3rd grader go to a 4th grade class, or can a 4th grader go to a 3rd grade class? Or can we look at, where do they live, and can they go to a different school? Or can somebody else have a mixed, 3-4 class or something like that? Like, think a little bit out of the ordinary, just to see if it can be done and how it can be done with the least amount of disruption.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's not a great answer. It's a problem we have. And I don't want to just say, from the superintendent down, do it, and I don't care if you're safe. That's not what we're trying to do. We want you to be happy, and we want you to be comfortable, and, we want the kids to get a good education. So let's try to figure out how to make this work as amicably as we can.
I think that was one of the reasons why we really wanted to get people together to help brainstorm this problem. And, we need experts like you all to help figure out how to do this. And you're the ones that, this affects greatly. So.
Yeah, and what you're comfortable doing. I mean, I don't want anyone to feel like, well, they just told me I got to have 24 kids in my, room, and they're 2 feet apart. We're not going to do that.
Does anyone want to ask any questions?
Can I just add one thing?
Go ahead.
We are asking families to notify us in the next 2 weeks. What did we say? We went back and forth. Kathleen has the notes on.
I actually did send a survey out today, just as a preliminary intention, to find out what people's intentions are. They didn't have to commit to it yet, but just to get a little idea about it. So I'll be sharing that information with the principals and with the, with you all, so that you
and that went out to the remote people.
Yes, just the remote kids. And then the deadline for that would be, there'll be another survey that goes out that will require them to commit. And that will be, the deadline is the 23rd of October.
Yeah.
3 weeks before you would see a kiddo from remote come back into your.
Yeah, someone just asked in the chat, regardless of when we go full day, remote students have the option of coming back in October or November?
October, yeah, they come back November 16th would be their comeback date.
November 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried to stagger it, and we're going to have to discuss then kind of what the next entry point is, so that we can plan for it. So it's not this kind of trickle of kids coming in, really messing up staffing structures, both for in-person and, quite frankly, for remote. Because, we have a number of staff who have hours tied up working with the remote kids that, we may have to shift and play with as more kids come in.
Yep.
And there's a follow-up question in the chat. Are homeschool kids committed to homeschool for the year, or do they have the option to come back?
Homeschool kids?
No,
Homeschool, like kids whose parents opted to homeschool,
no,
not remote.
I don't know.
no. But unlike other years where we would probably try to entertain a homeschooler coming back right away, almost like a kid transferring in from another town, you know, like if they bought a house and they're moving into Hartford. I think this year we have to treat them sort of like, you know, the remote kids where we're gauging it so that we don't have, you know, 5 homeschoolers say, oh, well, we now want to come back. And it flies right in the face of what Rick just said with your schedule and the structures you set up. So I'm sure that's not written down anywhere, but I don't think they should have any more precedent than some of the kids who perhaps chose remote. I don't know what the other administrators think, but somehow we have to have some control over that so we don't have a lot of kids move in from homeschool and throw us right off track as far as, you know, distancing and the structures that you've put in place.
Right. We did give the parents who chose remote academy, we did give them the option of coming back to in-person or changing or reversing their decision by the end of the first trimester. We did not do that for homeschoolers. We didn't say that to them specifically.
Yeah. And I think in years past, you know, they would have been able to move in, like I said, just like someone from out of town. We may want to notify them that, you know, if you choose to just, you know, come back to school, you're going to be on the same schedule as those remote learners. Because I don't think it would be fair if a remote learner wanted to come back, you know, right away, and you said, no, you can't come back until the end of the first trimester. And then a homeschooler comes and says, well, I want to come back, you know, next week. Should they take priority over the kid who's remote, who already indicated they want to come back? So we may want to try to, you know, consider that and notify or put on our website or somewhere in our documents that, you know, something about homeschool is returning.
So there's a couple more questions in the chat. One of them is, are we going to plan, oh, it just moved. Are we going to plan for class sizes taking a few move-ins into account? We've had a lot of new students coming to the district from out of state, presumably because Vermont is safer. So that might be something to keep in mind while planning those bigger class sizes.
I mean, it's a good thing to think about and have on the radar. I think what's hard is if you have, you know, 15 or 16 kids in front of your face, and, you know, I don't know how you accommodate for the two or three that might move in. I mean, you kind of deal with the kids that are right in front of you, and you know, it is something for the principals to have on their radar. And it's another good problem to have. We have pretty low enrollment in some schools, so we want to welcome as many, you know, new kids as we can. But in this situation, we got to keep everybody safe. So
yeah. And are there any funds available to purchase extra or real plastic dividers for tables and desks to allow for more social distancing in the classrooms?
I would, yes.
Just talk to building principals?
Talk to building principals, and if they don't have money in their budgets, the district would certainly find the money.
Okay. And
shouldn't be a problem unless the plastic isn't available, which is a thing.
yeah, we have some makeshift ones over here. They were made.
Rick did a nice job. I think whoever did that has got a second sort of trade to consider.
For more desks and tables,
Yeah.
Yep. So the desks and tables, I know we sent some rectangular tables back to the high school from the catacombs, and they're not in the best shape, but there are some available. They're older, but that might be a solution too. And we did put our round tables in storage nicely so we could get them back post-COVID. But so the decision to switch from remote to in-school, is that in place for the rest of the year, or is there another option for parents to switch at the third trimester?
It's only this one time.
Okay.
And so you need to make the decision whether you're going to remain remote for the rest of the year or in person for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to ask any questions in person before I continue down the list? Or in person, I should say. Go ahead. Sarah.
Can our families given the option to go from in school to remote? If people change their mind now, they've been in school and they don't like it, or they're nervous about flu season, can they now opt to go remote at the change of the trimester? Or is it only a one-way street back in?
Oh, we haven't talked about that. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, Kathy, what we can do.
We haven't talked about that.
Okay.
It's a good thought, though, to put on the radar. I'd hate to see that happen, but I think, Sarah, you're right. There's a real possibility. If we have a bad flu season, people might want to go that way.
Or if like our one positive case had taken a turn for a different way, but it was handled so well and it didn't spread. So,
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have on our radar to think about what we would do.
So there's a bunch of questions about deep cleaning, and are there any opportunities for deep cleaning the buildings when we're not present?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with the deep cleaning. So first of all, I'm going to say, and luckily we're remote, so you can't hit me with a spitball or something. But the idea was that the buildings are clean. So one, if you don't think things are getting clean, you need to let your building administrator know that it's not getting cleaned, or at least clean to what you think is clean. Because we've invested a whole bunch of money in doing, a lot more cleaning with the day cleaners and then additional tasks at night, and with the new equipment. But the deep cleaning, should be able to happen in our regular schedule. That is the plan, that they're doing deep cleaning during the day and at night. So it shouldn't have to happen when you're not in the building. Now, somebody asked about lunch, and I understand that. I'm not sure if I would want people cleaning or spraying stuff when I'm eating, my bologna sandwich. The only thing with me is I usually eat it so quick, it's probably not that much of a problem. But yeah, you should feel comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable, if you can ask that they do it at a different time, the principal can try to work with the custodian to do a different time. That might not always be possible because the custodians are generally the same hours that all of you are. So that's doesn't always work. And if a lot of people want to do that, it's probably not going to work at all. But they probably could accommodate a few that are nervous or don't want to go somewhere else. You can leave your room while they're doing that, which is what I would recommend. And if there's another place in the building or outside that you can eat, great. It doesn't take very long. We've been told it's not dangerous, but I wouldn't want it on my food.
Yeah, the backpack fogger things. So there's not supposed to be anyone in the room. You're supposed to have the windows closed, right? Yes, Rick's nodding. Okay, which I thought was weird, but you keep all the fog in the room. And then after 15 minutes, the chemical that's used in that fogging machine is neutralized. So even if a kid grossly licks its finger, licks the table, licks its finger again, or the kid, nothing bad is getting into the kid's system because of that neutralization period. So for that 15 minutes though, that's the time it's taking to kill or disinfect the surfaces. It's not cleaning, that's disinfecting. So cleaning is like the wiping of the surfaces with the soap and water and getting the dirt off. So those are two separate things, which I learned this year.
Yeah.
Welcome to 2020. So the green spray that we got also should be left on for a period of time. You're supposed to wear gloves, masks, eye protection. So if you're cleaning with kids around or near your food, that should be soap and water, like Dawn, that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yep. Good. You're
Okay.
becoming an expert.
I know, it's crazy, the things you learn. And someone asked if the Aslan's folks are doing a deeper clean at night.
They
They have
are.
the same job though, right?
Yeah. They are supposed to be, and the Aslan's day cleaners will be in on Monday when there's in-service to clean, you know, while you guys are doing in-service. So I can ask them to do more on Monday if people think, you know, that's necessary.
And I have copies of the contracts that Tom shared with us. So if you want a list of what you should see them doing, I'm happy to share that with you. Like the daytime Aslan's people and the nighttime Aslan's people. And that's helpful just to know.
Yeah, and I mean, just so you know, obviously it's not a perfect science. It's not the most desirable job. They have a lot of trouble getting people to work. As you could see, that's why I did that notice for helpers, you know, and I might have to do that again because I think Queechee still doesn't have a regular day cleaner. They're having one of the night cleaners come in early and parceling together how they're getting their day cleaning done by Aslan's. But there are not companies who want to do this, and that doesn't make you feel better, but we need to just hold them to task and make sure they're doing what we're paying for, which is a lot. We didn't skimp. We're not trying to skimp at all on the cleaning, but it's more of like trying to hire people to do the work. Yeah. Is more of the problem.
And I think what worked for Dothenbrook really well is we ended up with a parent of a student. And so her vested interest is that this is her kid's school. And I joke around that I literally sometimes feel like she's following me personally around, but she's not. She's just everywhere. And, you know, she just wipes everything. And so hopefully we can find that kind of a person for everywhere.
And you know, they are very responsive since I pay the bill to me telling them what to do. So if something's not happening, I really do want to know. They're not always as responsive to all of you because they feel like they have, you know, 400 bosses. But when I say, look, this is the contract and this didn't happen, they usually address it. Some schools are better than others. It depends on who your cleaner is and you know what their work ethic is. But a lot of the schools have been, you know, happy so far with the cleaning. But I know there's some weak spots.
There's a question about what deep cleaning is.
Yeah, well, that was something Andrea and Felicia and I in the COVID coordination meetings we've talked about. There really is no definition of that deep cleaning. We don't know what deep is, but I don't know if Andrea is still here, but if she has a better definition, we've never really had that defined. I don't know if it's a misnomer or what, but
I know when Felicia and I looked, we couldn't find anything anywhere to define exactly what they consider deep cleaning.
Okay.
I mean, our big thing and what we've been told to focus on is the touch surfaces. So door handles, doors, railings, stair railings, the desks, you know, soap dispensers, actually hand sanitizer dispensers, anything that people are touching regularly, you know, so like the underneath of a desk or the, you know, even light switches is a high touch surface. But, so those were the things we were told to focus on. And the reason we've invested in the foggers is because even if you don't clean them with a cloth or soap and water, you're disinfecting them when the fog is sprayed. So technically it's safe, but it's actually dirty, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's disinfected, so there's not germs, but it
might still have dirt on it.
Yes. And it might still have crud on it, or dirt, or urine, or whatever, but it's disinfected and inert, sort of. So, I mean, I know in my mind what deep cleaning is that you've touched every surface with a cloth and you know, taken the scum off, and then it's disinfected, which is what we've wanted. But that's not always that easy to do in a school. But that's where the foggers come in and hopefully make everybody more comfortable. And everybody's supposed to have the full array of those, I think, at this point. I don't know if you've seen them, but You know, we had one for the office in every building, one for the nurse in every building, and then the backpack for the custodian.
Yep.
So,
And another thing that is happening is the school district had a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning audit, the HVAC audit done. And there was a report. And so there were a number of recommendations, and the district is getting the filters that they need and things like that to upgrade our HVAC system, because a lot of the research is showing that, you know, we're going to be inside soon. And
yeah.
the size of the window, we need a little extra help with the air circulation.
Yeah.
So that's good. They were way
Yeah.
ahead of the game. You did that this summer, right, Tom?
Yeah. And as soon as I heard about it, I got out in front of it because I knew, like usual in schools, there are only so many contractors to go around and do this work. So like first come, first served. So like we got in line first and got them in here to assess it and got the filters ordered. All of this stuff is like back ordered. So like the HEPA filters for the White River School, where they don't have the air handling units, are back ordered. The filters, the MERV 13 is the kind of filter you're supposed to have in your equipment. Those are all back ordered, like 8 to 12 weeks. So, you know, we're in the queue. We should get them soon. And as soon as they come, we're going to have them installed. And then the people here to monitor how well the air is flowing through them so that we're getting the right airflow in every room. But the good news is that if we have the right equipment, you know, and we'll get the new filters installed as soon as possible.
So any other questions you guys have before I read the next one? Just unmute yourself and read it out loud if you want. Okay, so I think the next question might be for the nurse. So there are lots of spaces where you might have more than one staff member sharing, like a motor room or my room or, you know, a classroom. If we clean with soap and water between students, is it possible for 2 staff members to share the same space on any given day? Hopefully the answer is yes, because that's what I've been doing. Andrea, do you have any advice on that?
I mean, I guess if that's the only thing they can use, it's better than nothing. But if they can spray with the stuff or disinfect in between uses with students, that would be better, especially if they're mixing the pods.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like in the motor room, they actually share the same equipment. So the equipment would have to be disinfected between kids in the pods. And then, you know, there's basic, like the kids come in your room, they wash their hands. They leave your room, they wash their hands.
Right.
That's
wear
key.
their masks. Yeah.
Those things like playground equipment, certain things are very difficult to clean, at least quickly. You know, like the children's toys and stuff when your kids were little, it's like, geez, how do you clean all those blocks? So that's where the fogger really was, you know, a good option. So maybe those are rooms where you feel like if you can't clean or the kids are very tactile and they've touched a lot of surfaces, maybe we get the handheld sprayer in there and leave, you know, the 10 minutes in between. For those.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, this is Beth Pastor calling. I'm calling in, and actually I'm the one who wrote that question about the motor room and 2 people sharing a space.
Yeah.
And my dilemma is, in one of the elementary schools, I'm sharing a space every day, and we're cleaning between kids, and we think it's working well. In the other school I'm in, I'm not allowed to share the motor room. I've been kicked out of it. And so I can't treat my children with the students with the equipment that I need. And that staff member is very, very afraid, and I get that.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, it's compromising my service, but if it's to keep everybody safe, then I should be doing the same thing in all the buildings, not different. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense to me. So I think, yeah, you probably need to work with me so we don't share specifics, but figure out either how to make that other staff person comfortable with the cleaning we're doing in between, or find you a different space to work in when you're in that building. That makes
Okay, Tom, I'll reach out to you directly.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for asking that. And I think that goes back to like people too. You have to be people. You have to know people have anxiety. And, you know, like my roommate over here, we had, we've talked to each other, like, don't do anything to put me at risk.
And everybody's a little different with this. And even with the cleaning, I've noticed everybody's different. But it's the same thing in the school. It's like a large family. And some people are really, really uncomfortable with, you know, some of the habits and any contact at all with some. And others are like more laid back and it's not as big a deal. But I mean, I think you have to respect what people's wishes are and work with them so that everybody's sort of happy. You know, but the two biggest things that where there isn't any room for any flexibility in my mind is with the distancing and with the mask wearing. When we had the positive case at the high school, it was a real eye-opener to learn how effective and how important those two things are with the safety of all of us. So it was like, you know, the cleaning, everything, it's all important. But what's key is keeping your mask on and staying 6 feet apart. You know, at the elementary level, they said 3 to 6 feet with the children. And they revised the guidance even yesterday that, you know, 3 to 6 feet. But those are the key things that made us have no other contacts to trace, no other recommendations to follow for that positive case at the high school. Even though they're mixing pods, they were mixing, you know, they changed classes 4 times a day. And the Department of Health still was like, you're with them for 65 minutes, you're keeping your mask on, the classes are socially distanced, they're small groups. We think you're good. So
as elementary teachers, we kind of laugh that, you know, like the social distancing rule is 6 feet for 15 minutes or less or more. I forget which way, however I'm saying it. But I was like, well, it only takes 2 seconds for a kid to lick another kid. But you know what I mean? So like, you know, your kids, if they've been licking or, you know, mask kissing or whatever it is.
Yes.
You know, use your judgment and report on it that way. But so the next question I have comes from someone about quarantining. So if a student is quarantined for 14 days because of violating travel restrictions, does the classroom teacher have to provide schoolwork for the student to stay caught up with their classes?
I think, you know, just like a student who is sick or, you know, leaves, I mean, it's going to be to your advantage to do the best you can for that kid to be, you know, come back in, you know, commensurate with the other kids. I mean, I think it's really hard to say, no, you don't have to do that. I realize what a burden that would be because you feel like there's been some sort of a conscious choice, but chances are the kid really didn't make the choice. It's the parent or the guardian who made that choice to take them to somewhere dangerous, and then we're sort of punishing the kid a little. I mean, I think it's hard for me to answer because I understand how hard that is for all of you. And, you know, when I was a teacher, I wouldn't even be sick because I hated making sub plans. So I understand what you're kind of dealing with and like what a pain that is. But
I was thinking like I could put together like a quarantine bag, you know, like kind of like
maybe
a
that's a better
blizzard bag, but put together a quarantine bag. So if a kid's away for 2 weeks, there's some work to do.
Yeah,
you know,
some stuff
even if it's different.
may not align with what we're doing in the class, but it's kind of the best we could do.
Right.
I think also, I think most of you have Google Classrooms. I wonder if there's a way, and you're sort of prepared to go remote at the drop of a hat anyway. I just, not that everything would be remote, would be able to do that, but maybe there would be some parts of what you're doing in your Google Classroom that might be able to be, that they could contribute to or do, but that's a
seesaw or something.
That's a hard one. Yeah, that's a hard one to.
Alicia.
Can I just add something to this quickly?
Yeah.
I think this is a balancing act because we don't want to make families feel like, oh, we'll just go and we're going to provide you all the lessons that we're going to. So go have fun, whatever. And we don't want to go on the other side of the spectrum and have families hiding it because they feel like they're not getting anything. So what was in the handbook at the beginning is that we will provide, to the best of our ability, a minimal amount of maintenance work.
Right.
And so,
right.
it's there, you're not making it, as much as you can, using stuff that's, your bridges workbooks that are created, stuff like that can easily be sent home to kind of introduce the kids to the skills as much as possible, but knowing that they're out and, we're not going to be in a place where, you're going to be recreating what you're doing in the classroom. That is not an expectation, nor can it be an expectation. But
and I don't want you to feel you've got to create 5 hours a day of work for each kid. That's not your problem. I mean, I think Rick is exactly right.
Right.
Sarah, did you have something you wanted to say?
Whoops,
I think you're still on mute, Sarah.
We're experiencing a couple of situations where kids are being sent home at the door for multiple symptoms. They can't come back until they've had a COVID test. So there may be an increase of students who are out for 2 or 3 days at a time, which is not really long enough to get maintenance work, but it's still a factor. This may not be the forum to talk about that, but it's certainly something to consider as flu season ramps up or allergies. All these kids are going to be kicked out for a day or 2 or 3, depending on what happens over at the testing sites. I don't know how to handle that.
Yeah, it's certainly different and a dilemma, but I would say do what you can, like we've already talked about, but it's something for us to consider, like if that gets worse, how are we going to deal with it? And how splintered is your class going to be with kids, every day you're going to be missing several kids. And how are we going to have any continuity of learning with that sort of dilemma?
And one of the things that came out, I know some people have asked me, like, what happens if there's so many of us sick that, I feel guilty not coming in. There's no one there to cover for me. And part of what we talked to the district and the superintendent's office about was that the building principals have the ability now to say, like, we're going to have an emergency remote day because we just don't have the staff available for all the kids to come in and for them to be safe, which, let's say the flu starts to go through White River School, and 10 staff members have the flu, you may not be able to open that day.
Yeah.
Or certain parts of the building might not be able to open that day. And, it's really a safety thing, which is nice. We haven't had that before. It's been an all or nothing thing before with the district.
We have that on our agenda for the next administrators meeting because we want to do that in a consistent way across the district, figure out some sort of benchmark that, makes the administrators comfortable. Like, yeah, Tom, I need to go remote this day. I mean, I can't, my building will not be safe.
Because we talked about it's hard to identify those people, right? Like, 5 of one type of person might be different than 5 classroom teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been so hard in this situation is we also want to be respectful of the parents and the families because they're trying to work too and, provide income to basically, put a roof over the kids' heads and put food on the table. So we can't just be like too lackadaisical. Oh, we're gonna go remote because we know some parents are going to take a day without pay or are going to get in trouble. I mean, people have just told me about some of the hardships they're facing, and some of the hourly laborers. Like, this is a real equity problem, and so we're trying to grapple with it as best we can, but it is a real problem.
So the holidays, that's come up a lot. And Rick, you brought up that fine balance of we want parents to be honest with us and staff members about where they go. And what's the plan for like Thanksgiving, Christmas? You know, is there going to be a message sent out, or are we looking at remote time?
I'm glad that came up because I need to send out a clear message. I mean, we're not considering going remote. I know some districts have talked about that. I'm not sure if that's even going to be allowed, but that's none of my business, whether they are. But, you know, even if we did, the Department of Health guidance is very clear. I mean, you would be going to potential red spots and bringing that virus back. Even if we weren't in school, it would still be really frowned upon for you to be traveling to many places right now. If you look at the map all around us, it's getting worse. You know, we got to make sacrifices, and hopefully the end is in sight with some sort of vaccine coming. But as hard as that is to not see your family and not go to some of the important events that happen around the holidays, I don't think we have much choice. Even if we were remote, it's still not safe. It's still not allowed by the Department of Health of the state of Vermont. You know, this summer I missed my father's 90th birthday because he's in Rhode Island, and there was no way I was going to go. It was the second week of school. And so I did the best I could and attended remotely for an hour, but you know, we're all facing that. There's been several weddings I haven't attended and things like that. It stinks. But yeah, I think we got to get back to our regular schedule. We know that the kids are regressing, and that's weighing on me heavily. I'm sure it's weighing on all of you heavily, all the kids who have lost skills, and how happy they've been to be back in the classroom. But
so Tom, is the district going to send something out to everyone, do you think, before Christmas and Thanksgiving?
Probably a couple times, but it's such a weird predicament, you know, like we don't want people to lie to us, but we also don't want them, you know, to do it. So it's just pretty difficult.
I like to change the language around it. So when someone says, I'm ratting out such and such a kid, no, you're not ratting that kid out. You're keeping everybody else safe.
No.
And, you know, it's come up where high school kids or parents have even posted where they've gone, and you're like, red zone, hello. So.
And some people, you know, have done, you know, told me long stories about how they didn't interact with anyone and they didn't do this and they didn't do that. I can't differentiate between all those cases. Like, I can't say, oh, it's okay for you because you said you didn't interact with anyone, but, you know, this person did, so they can't come back. It's just, it's one of the few things that's like hard and fast. It's like you were in a red zone. Sorry, you got to quarantine for 14 days or get tested.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of red zones right now. The map changes every Tuesday. So
yellow zones too. Yep. It's anything over 400 cases per million.
Yep. Per million.
Someone asked, are we essential workers if those of us like you, Tom, who live in New Hampshire end up in a county with a higher rate of infection than Vermont?
Yes, my understanding is that we're allowed to come to work. If Grafton County, where I live, turns into an orange or a red zone, I'm still allowed to come to work.
Yep. That's considered essential travel.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm considered an essential worker, but it's essential travel.
Right. Yeah, if you scroll, so whenever I Google travel map Vermont, and the main section of it is for if people are coming to Vermont, but then down at the bottom, when you go further, it's information for Vermonters. And there's a definition of essential travel on there. And it's also like caring for elderly, custodial, shifting of children, that kind of stuff. So there's another question in the chat. Can you speak to the cases where families are returning to a primary or secondary home in a red zone on a regular basis? Is this deemed essential travel? So if you're traveling back and forth to a second home or a different home, What about those cases?
Well, it's the same guidance in my mind. I mean, we've had parents who, I don't know, maybe they're not understanding the rules right, but if it's essential travel for like custody, like you said, or for work, then it's allowed. But I think some people are skirting the rules. So if you know specific cases, I've had the principal, when I found out, I've asked the principal to dig into it. And there have been some pretty unhappy people with those situations, but I don't think they understand that that's not allowed. So going to your second home on vacation, that's, even though you're not mixing with anyone else, is still, not allowed. So
Right.
We've had some that have said things like, oh, it's because of custody, or it's because of work, or it's, and those we've got to kind of explore. It's, one of the issues with this whole COVID thing is a lot of it's an honor system, and the people who are honest sometimes end up, I don't think they shoot themselves in the foot because they're doing the right thing, but it's like they're the ones who are being told, yeah, you got to quarantine, and someone else lies about it and gets away with it because we don't know for sure. So I think those cases you should tell your administrator, like, we know this person's going here, and it's not for something essential. It's for convenience.
So I think I've gotten to the bottom of my list. You've addressed most of them, so I'll open it up to anybody else who has any questions before we wrap up. I kind of categorized some. So like you talked about related arts, so I didn't ask specific questions. So, oh wait, one. When can we mix pods?
No,
We can't.
no.
No.
According to the state, not right now.
No. And somebody asked about related arts, and I thought that was a great question. I mean, that's one of the dilemmas that the committee, the ad hoc committee, really needs to contend with, because, in order to get related arts to where they're supposed to be, we kind of need to bring everybody back full time. But bringing everybody back full time has its drawbacks. So it's like, how are we going to solve that in a way that works for both needs?
And school districts are getting a lot of leniency about like state requirements for minimum times and things like that, right? Okay.
Yes. And days and everything, but still, I mean, we want our kids to have all of the regular experiences that they have, and the related arts are really important.
All right,
so-
any other questions?
Yeah, and if anything comes up at any time, just, shoot me an email or tell Nicole there's, a list of questions, and we can do this again. It doesn't have to be a one time only.
How did it go, Tom? What do you think? Were you okay?
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I like having the like face to face. It's good to see you and like have everybody together and answering questions.
Yeah, and it's a hard issue. I mean, the issues are hard. They're not something that we all have, good, solid, clear answers on. Some things are a little gray, and if we work together, we can figure them out and come up with something that everybody's sort of happy with, or at least can live with. But, I certainly appreciate everybody's efforts to get the kids back. And, I'm hearing mostly positive things. I mean, community members, school board members, really happy with the work you've been doing. So you're all doing something right, and the administrators too. Kids are safe, staff are safe, and kids are learning. And I just hope we don't do anything that jeopardizes that. So all your questions are welcome, because if we can, ward off some problem, that's a good thing. Tell us if there's something you think is inherently unsafe. We might be missing it. We don't know everything.
Yeah. So many, I was just going to say, how many times a day do you say, whoa, we haven't thought of that?
No.
And it's a lot.
Yeah, haven't thought of that one. And
It's so
athletics have been so troublesome in a way. Like, I think our department does a great job, but there's so many other schools that aren't as strict as us, and they're coming down, they don't care about the masks, or they wear them under their nose, or, when they're in a huddle, they're too close. It's like unbelievable what we're seeing from some of the other schools.
Mm-hmm.
So the rules haven't been interpreted, consistently across the state. but I mean, I know in Hartford they have, and so I'm really proud of what we're doing here. You know, our parents and our kids are going to other towns, and they're the ones following the rules.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it's like great. It's terrible that the other schools aren't, but I mean, our community is going and representing it, you know, Hartford really well. So that's good. I've heard that from several people.
Yeah, I watched Jeff Marino go to the middle of the soccer field and say, either have your kids put their masks on or we're leaving. We're done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I was so proud of him for doing that, because that took a lot of courage. You know, people aren't always that nice at athletic events.
Nope.
And I was like, I got your back. You know, let me know what I can do. I want you to do that. I totally support that. It's like, look, you're going to ruin it for everybody. No one will be playing.
Yeah. And when COVID happens in one of our schools, like I just want to say this again, like we just have to we always teach our kids how to behave and how to behave in expected ways. And it's not to like make a like pariah of the kid who gets sick, you know, and it's that this is a member of our community and we're trying, you know, the person's going to get better. And, you know, this is through no fault of their own probably. And,
Right.
you know, so
that was
we have to kind of prepare.
That was really sad at the high school, because there was just that sort of initial lashing out, like the kid did something wrong, and it's like it had nothing to do with the kid. It was just, you know, it's just circumstance. I mean, it could happen to any one of us at any time. It's a weird way to catch it, you know, just floating around, and was in the wrong place, I guess, at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you, guys. That was great.
Bye.
Bye.